Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox. I would like to welcome you to the Sunday Book Review. The Sunday Book Review is the series where I discuss books which impact the compliance practitioner, the legal professional, and the business professional. I hope you will enjoy this episode. The Sunday Book Review is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network. The Sunday Book Review for June 11, 2023, the books by George Orwell Edition. This is part two of a two-part series around and about George Orwell. Last week we looked at books on George Orwell. Today we look at books by George Orwell. We, of course, begin with 1984, his greatest and most well-known work of dystopian futurism, although many thought that was pretty much Trump's America. When it came out, Doublethink, Doublespeak, the entire panoply of the Department of Truth, and Room 101. Everyone should read 1984, although most magma hat wearing idiots want to ban it because it's so close to the truth about what they want. Next up, Animal Farm, perhaps the most withering commentary of Soviet-style communism. Some pigs are equal, but some pigs are more equal than other pigs. It's a story of a farm where a communist government takes over and how the farm degenerates and the people degenerate around it. Those were two works of fiction. There were three works of nonfiction that I want to talk about as well. We begin with one of his first works of nonfiction, Down and Out in London and Paris. I don't know if you would call it author verite, but Orwell wrote about the poor and living poor and being poor. And literally, he was down and out in London and Paris. He was a sickly child and a sickly person because of tuberculosis, and living in squalid conditions in London and Paris only made his health worse. The Road to Wigan Pier is about the lower classes in England and their daily struggles for economic justice and economic strife that they had to go through. Once again, superbly researched by Orwell himself as living through many of the stories in this book. It was a great book of the British working class and one of the most respected texts that talked about not simply the politics of the working class, but the economics and socialization of the working class in Britain pre-war, pre-World War II. It's still worth a great read today, as is Down and Out in London and Paris. And his final book is about the Spanish Civil War, Homage to Catalonia. Orwell fought in the Spanish Civil War for a Trotskyite brigade. He was nearly killed in the Spanish Civil War, surviving a bullet wound to the neck, which scarred him for life. And he lived through just the interscene massacres by Trotskyites and communists against each other, really showing the invidiousness of international communism and how, in many ways, the communists stabbing others in the back led to the defeat of the Spanish Republic. George Orwell was one of the greatest writers of the 20th century. I hope you will pick up one or more of these books, particularly 1984, if you want to see a direction that America could turn in a second Trump administration. I'd like to tell you about the latest addition to the Compliance Podcast Network. It's Two Gurus Talk Compliance, where, with my friend and colleague Christy Grant Hart, we take a look at some of the top compliance commentary around. It's a long-form, up to 1 hour podcast, but if you're interested in compliance, if you're interested in Christy Grant Hart and myself talking about compliance, this would be a great podcast for you to check in on. It premiered on March 10th on the Compliance Podcast Network. I know you'll enjoy this latest offering. Additionally, we have Data-Driven Compliance, which is a podcast where I look at the use of data in compliance programs. This is perhaps the most cutting-edge podcast I have going right now. And if you're interested in how data can be used, how to structure a data analytics program, what tools are available out there for you, and how compliance practitioners are using data, this is certainly the podcast for you. So check out Data-Driven Compliance, all on the Compliance Podcast Network. The Sunday Book Review is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.